My mother slid an envelope across the diner table and looked at me like I was dirt on her shoe. Inside was $500. Take it and don't show up to your sister's wedding, she said. Julian comes from real money, Paige. You'll only embarrass us with your secondhand clothes and low-class life. She actually thought a measly $500 was enough to buy my absence so my golden child sister could marry her so-called millionaire savior. What my mother didn't know was that Julian's high-profile tech startup had been going bankrupt for 6 months, and my holding company had bought 80% of his debt last Tuesday. I didn't just have a seat at the wedding. I held the deed to the groom's entire life. Welcome back to BT Revenge Tales, where entitlement always pays the ultimate price. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below with the city you're watching from so I can see how far our stories travel. Now, let's get into it. My name is Paige Holloway. I'm 31 years old, and for the last 7 years, my family has treated me like their dirtiest little secret. When I refused to join my mother Eleanor's struggling retail agency straight out of college, she labeled me a stubborn failure. While they spoiled my younger sister Vanessa and bought her every luxury on credit, I quietly left town, rented a shoebox studio, and went completely silent about my work. To them, my plain clothes and quiet lifestyle meant I was broke and barely surviving. That brought us to the sticky booth of a Greasy Spoon diner 2 days before the wedding. Eleanor slid a white envelope across the table, tapping her manicured red nails against the surface. $500 in cash, she said, her voice dripping with disgust. Take it, Paige. Buy yourself some groceries, but stay far away from the St. Regis this weekend. Vanessa is marrying Julian Vance. He's a tech visionary, and his family belongs to high society. You'll only humiliate us with your presence. I picked up the envelope, feeling the crisp bills, and smiled. Are you sure this is all it takes, Mom? Just disappear, she sneered. She had no idea she had just handed pocket change to the woman who held Julian's entire empire in the palm of her hand. What my mother and sister didn't know was that I wasn't barely scraping by. Over the last 6 years, I had quietly built Apex Capital Partners, a private investment and debt acquisition firm managing over $40 million in assets. I operated through blind trusts and strictly kept my name off public filings, preferring real power over loud vanity. While Vanessa bragged on social media about landing a tech mogul, my analysts had already run the numbers on Julian Vance and his startup, Vance Dynamics. The lavish lifestyle, the foreign sports cars, the luxury penthouse, it was all an elaborate house of cards funded by aggressive venture loans. Julian was hemorrhaging cash, defaulting on 3 major credit lines, and facing a forced liquidation. 4 days before the wedding, Apex Capital bought 80% of his company's outstanding debt and converted it into majority voting shares. As I sat in my downtown office, my phone chimed with a frantic email from Julian's CFO, Managing Partner Holloway. Mr. Vance urgently requests a brief meeting at his wedding reception to sign the restructuring agreement. Julian was desperately waiting to meet his financial savior. He just had no clue who was holding the pen. The morning of the wedding, my phone lit up with a barrage of mocking text messages from Vanessa. She sent a photo of herself in her $15,000 designer gown, holding a glass of vintage champagne. Thanks for taking Mom's $500 and knowing your place, Paige. One text read, Julian's family is introducing us to venture capitalists today. You just stick out like a stain. Enjoy your TV dinner in that sad little apartment while I join the 1%. I set the phone down without replying. For years, Vanessa and Eleanor had taken everything from me, claiming my college scholarship funds for Vanessa's shopping sprees, taking credit for my ideas, and treating me like an uninvited guest in my own family. They genuinely believed that true worth was measured by flashy labels and performative arrogance. I stood up, walked into my walk-in closet, and selected a tailored emerald green silk dress with understated diamond studs. I slid the Vance Dynamics debt restructuring portfolio and the proof of majority ownership into my leather clutch. It was time to give the bride and groom their real wedding present. The St. Regis Country Club was dripping with old money elegance, crystal chandeliers, towering floral arrangements, and string quartets playing beneath arched ceilings. Security was tight at the front gates, But when the guard checked my name against the VIP board register, he bowed his head politely and waved my car through without a second thought. I entered the grand ballroom just as the cocktail hour was reaching its peak. Within minutes, my mother spotted me near the champagne tower. Her face contorted into pure venom as she grabbed Vanessa's arm and marched directly across the polished marble floor. "What are you doing here?" Eleanor hissed, her voice cutting through the gentle hum of conversation. Several nearby guests turned to watch. "I gave you $500 to stay away, you ungrateful leech. Did you think you could just sneak in and steal free food for my daughter's big day?" Vanessa crossed her arms, smirking in her bridal gown. "Look at you, pathetic as always. Security is going to drag you out by your cheap hair, Paige. You're ruining my entrance to high society." I didn't flinch. I just took a slow sip of my drink and waited. "Is there a problem here?" A sharp, confident voice cut through the growing circle of onlookers. Julian Vance strode over, adjusting the cuffs of his bespoke tuxedo. He looked like the picture of wealthy authority, glaring down at me with pure disdain as he wrapped an arm around Vanessa's waist. "Julian, darling," Vanessa whined, leaning into his side. "This is my jealous sister Paige. She took $500 from Mom to stay away, and now she's crashing our reception to cause a scene." Julian sneered, signaling the two private security guards near the archway. "Listen to me carefully, whoever you are. You're trespassing on a private event. Leave right now before I have you arrested and ruin whatever miserable life you have left." The ballroom went dead silent as guests leaned in to watch my supposed humiliation. I calmly reached into my clutch, pulled out a thick, embossed card, and held it out between two fingers. "Julian Vance," I said smoothly, my voice carrying clearly across the marble floor. "I believe your CFO emailed me about an urgent meeting. I'm Paige Holloway, managing partner and majority shareholder of Apex Capital Partners." Julian glanced at the card. In a fraction of a second, the smug arrogance shattered from his face. Every drop of color drained from his skin, turning him a sickening, ashen gray. His knees visibly buckled. Your Apex Capital?" he whispered, his voice trembling so hard the whole room could hear it. "Julian, what are you talking about?" Eleanor snapped, waving a dismissive hand toward me. "She's a nobody. She works some dead-end desk job. Have security throw her out into the street." "Shut up, Eleanor." Julian choked out, his voice cracking with absolute panic. He turned to me, his hands shaking so violently he dropped his champagne flute, sending crystal shattering across the polished floor. "Miss Holloway, Paige, please. We can talk about this in private. My company needs that liquidity bridge to survive tomorrow's payroll." Vanessa stared at her new husband in horror, her designer bouquet slipping from her manicured fingers. "Julian, stop humiliating us. What are you doing? Tell her who you are." "Who is he, Vanessa?" I asked calmly, pulling the debt restructuring dossier from my clutch and setting it on a nearby table. "He's a man whose company was 48 hours away from complete bankruptcy. The penthouse you bragged about? Leased through his corporation. The luxury cars? Collateral on defaulted loans. As of Tuesday, my firm owns 80% of Vance Dynamics debt and controlling equity. Your so-called visionary husband is technically an employee under my management." Vanessa's jaw dropped as she looked between Julian's terrified face and the stamped legal paperwork. Eleanor clutched her chest, staggering back against a marble pillar as the high society guests began whispering and laughing openly. The grand fairy tale had unraveled in less than 2 minutes. "Here are the terms of your survival, Julian," I said, tapping the contract with my pen. "You remain as standard operational staff at a capped base salary. Every penny of corporate profit goes toward paying off your debt to Apex Capital. If you violate my terms or cause my family name any further embarrassment, I will accelerate your debt tomorrow morning and force Vance Dynamics into immediate liquidation." Julian swallowed hard, sweat dripping down his temple, and nodded rapidly like an obedient child. "Whatever you want, Ms. Holloway. I'll sign everything tonight." I turned toward my mother, whose face had twisted from arrogance to pure, panicked disbelief. I reached into my clutch, pulled out the exact white envelope from the diner, and dropped it right into the designer handbag resting on her arm. Here's your $500 back, Mom, I said with a faint smile. Consider it my contribution toward the catering bill you and Vanessa definitely can't afford anymore. I turned on my heel and walked out of the ballroom, leaving Eleanor gasping for air, Vanessa sobbing over her hollow marriage, and Julian begging for mercy. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if your mother tried to buy your absence with a $500 bribe? Tell me in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the other revenge stories popping up on your screen right now.